Welcome to the Recovery.com podcast. I'm Dr. Mala, and today I'm joined by my fellow host, Amanda Uphoff. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Dr. Mala. Welcome, Abdullah. So happy to be here today.
Yeah. So, as Amanda said, we're so excited to be welcoming Abdullah Boulad, who is a former venture capitalist turned burnout expert and founder and CEO in the healthcare sector. After experiencing a life changing heart attack triggered by extreme work stress, Abdullah redirected his impressive academic background from a dual master degree in general management and business engineering to certifications in psychology, integrative health, and so much more. I'm so excited to dive into this conversation with you today. Welcome, Abdullah.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Mala. Nice to be here with you today.
Wonderful. So, can you take us back to the moment when you realized work life balance had collapsed? What did that journey look like? What did your journey look like? How did you get here?
It's a long story, but let me start by giving how it happened to me. For me, it started very slowly. It started all by my wife falling down the stairs. She was pregnant with our third child. And this led to a series of incidences within our life. She had to undergo some surgeries. My son, who was still in her belly in the 8 months, didn't grow anymore. It was a very stressful time, and I still had my business with a lot of employees and also in general a stressful life by itself. Happened then, things get better. My son came to life. He was healthy. But 3 weeks later, life happened again, and he ended up with a virus in an ICU in Switzerland at a hospital, and we didn't know if he will survive. So this has turned our life again upside down, and which took months to follow up on him with doctors and health professionals and see how we can get off of that situation. And at some point, my business went down, or because I couldn't focus on it to full extent as I needed to do, and the family situation and the health situation, everything together was just too much, and I ended up with a heart attack at the hospital as well. So this was for me a turning point where I felt something has to change. And landing up in a hospital with a heart attack, you think about, okay, what if you would not have survived this situation in life? Would you have achieved everything you want? And I want to focus at going forward, because there has been certainly also some anxiety around it. Is it happening again? And how? And why it's happening to me? So I was eager to learn. Being an entrepreneur, and I always was reinventing myself in the sense, because I changed from different industries, and I was always happy to learn new things and new ideas and develop them into a new creation where I felt something is needed. At that point of my life, I felt I need to learn. That's the first thing I do. So I went out again. I took time. I disconnected from business for a while. We traveled frequently to Argentina, where I felt like a bit a serene environment. It was calm. We had horses. We had a calm environment I never experienced before, because living in Switzerland, in Zurich, it's a vibrant city. For many people coming from New York or LA or other big US cities, it's still a small city. But we know today it has effect on your nervous system and everything together. So, but being on the countryside for a while was very helpful to me. Learning more and more what happened to me because I couldn't find the right help, because I was pushed kind of from one therapist to another, or one specialist in health to another. This was the case with my son, with my wife, and with myself later on. So I was desperate, and this should have been one of the best health systems in the world in Switzerland. So long story short, this was the wake-up moment where I needed to dive more into health and healthcare in general and psychology. And this is what led me to be today who I am and what I do.
That's amazing. So the big question is, when you started to dive deep into what you were researching and what you were seeking, the answers that you were seeking, what did you find? What were those big ticket answers that started to take you in the direction of the beautiful things that you've been doing? I'm going to say the balance for sure, but what were those big milestones that you landed on?
I didn't know what I'm looking for. I was just looking for something, maybe the ultimate, some meaning into my life, and some sense or more meaningful being. So, what is it I want to achieve? One thing I forgot to tell. So, along that way, also I had my father passed away, who has been a big role figure to me. So, a lot of incidences which allow me also to reflect on my life and what I want to do. So the main question I would say, what is it I want to leave behind for my children, for others? What can I do to do good in this world? That was the ultimate question, I would say, but this came along the way and it was not ready at the beginning.
Yeah. So then how did you get started? I think that's a question that everybody lands upon too. You go through this big milestone moment in your life. It was a
Mm.
turning point. You're looking at transitioning from the life that you were living to now this life where you can answer that question solidly. What am I going to leave behind? How am I going to do it? What was the most challenging part of that transition? And what are you able to do? What are you doing now that
Mm.
is helping you answer those questions?
The ultimate thing I needed to is first to understand myself and to undergo like a personal development myself and understanding my history, understanding what happened to me. And only then I was able to build everything else I have been doing on a kind of a solid foundation. I became more a calmer personality, a calmer person in general, and with clearer vision. But understanding my history, which obviously it has started to me in a traumatic experience. I was born in Lebanon in the civil war, and my family had to flee the country and go to Switzerland when I was 7. And a lot of memories, a lot of pictures are present still from that time. But growing up in Switzerland, I was not aware about this anymore. And coming into a foreign country without knowing any language, being foreigner. So all this was important for me to understand and how this has shaped me later on in life and potentially had an influence on what happened to me as well. I started to understand about trauma. I started to understand about mental health in general as well, beside, of course, more the physical health, the gut health, the nutritional side, the physical activity, the healthy routines, and so on and so forth. So that understanding, and I was always in contact with the healthcare system. My parents used to work for one of the largest hospitals in Switzerland, in Zurich, the university hospital. I was frequently there, but more as a guest. But I liked the environment, and I was always intrigued by helping others or doing something where with support to a larger community. And this self-realization, self-development process I went through led me to the decision to do something in the healthcare industry. I had the chance to become CEO of some clinics in Switzerland, which I led for a while. But being myself an entrepreneur and almost like I was 13, 14, being always my own boss, it was difficult for me and with my ideas and my visions to align that together. Said to myself, I can do this better, I can do this different. And this was the starting point of the Balance. 6 years ago, I started the Balance. The Balance is today a rehab clinic for mental health, addiction, and eating disorders. But very often clients come to us for complex situations or combined issues, as you obviously know. That was the beginning of the balance. And today we have a team of over 100 people working in different locations all over Europe. And we have been able to help people from all over the world. And we are continuing to do that happily.
That's absolutely wonderful. I think for our audience, would you be able to tell us a little bit about what it would be like when you walk in for treatment? What can we expect?
I set up the balance initially for entrepreneurs and people with high needs because I felt myself when, as an entrepreneur, when my life situation, everything broke down, being in a small room somewhere in a regular hospital is not helpful to my recovery. It can fix, let's say, a broken leg, but then you go out there again. But for mental health, it was not sufficient in my perspective. So I was looking how and what setting would I be in? And today, what we do is we have highly tailored, highly luxurious residences, and our clients live in combination with nature. I'm right now in one of our houses. It's on a plot of 240,000 square meter in Mallorca, and nothing is outside. If I would open the window, you would hear the wind going through the palm trees and the birds. And besides the privacy, the luxurious environment, the combination of nature into therapy is, I think, what makes the environment work very well and allow the deeper work to happen.
Yeah, that connection to nature definitely can be healing. That's wonderful that you've put yourself in a beautiful location. It sounds like that's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it was a
So,
bit selfish in the beginning when I came to Mallorca because I wanted to live myself here. I was having a house next door and we had our horses running around in the garden around the pool. It was very nice experience, but what was helpful to me, I always believe that this can be helpful for others too.
that's so great. You mentioned Argentina earlier too, and I love Argentina as well. When I visited, it's definitely one of our favorite places in our family, but
Mhm.
I feel the same serenity, the same peace. So
Mhm.
I wanted to add that too.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing parts of your story. And I agree. I had a sponsor once who said, life gets lifey. And it sounded like a lot of things converged in your life to make life extra lifey at the time of your cardiac event. And the work you're doing at the Balance is beautiful, but I know that it's still running a business, right? And so I'm curious. I in another lifetime owned a yoga studio, and the stress of that, ironically doing yoga all day surrounded by tranquility, led me to my own breakdown and
Mhm.
deep into my alcohol addiction. So I know that even being immersed in a tranquil environment can lead to burnout when we don't discover that balance. So what do
Yeah.
you do to stay in balance, running the balance?
This is a very important point, just in general for therapists. And I've seen so many therapists, they are so stressed about their work, helping others and running around and having 10 clients a day. I mean, what's the point of that? That's not our approach. Also, just spending hours in an office just so you spend hours. We have a different corporate philosophy. As a team, we're quite flexible. My team, they can work everywhere. We want to be in balance ourselves in our life. When we realize that we are here for each other and we remind each other about it as well. So we do together yoga, we do activities together. Myself, I do my sport every morning. I do my running, I do my gym, I do my yoga or the qigong or the breath work. I have it blocked in my schedule, and that's my job of putting some boundaries and self-care in place. If you look at my schedule and you see all over the place what I've blocked in summertime, I have even some blocks for siesta, to taking a nap. I have to block this time. And this is what everyone should do within the organization. If we feel someone is stressed, we address it together. Why? What is happening? We have to be in balance ourselves to be there at our best for others. And this is what our clients feel. If I run around and like I enter the door to visit a client and I'm stressed, you will feel it. We run a different type of business. We don't see hundreds of patients every day. So it depends on also the environment you work in. We have only few clients at a time. Putting boundaries in place, putting your own house in order before addressing and helping others.
That's so wise. I think the temptation is because the stakes are so high. We feel it here too at Recovery.com. We're not clinicians, but we are care navigators and helping people find treatment. And so we're saving lives. And the temptation is to just work, 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 work. But what you said about walking into a room stressed is so true. It's contagious. People can feel it. So getting ourselves, taking those deep breaths or whatever we need to do before heading into a meeting is so important. Thank you for that.
Yes. And if you're stressed, you don't start to listen. You don't start actively listening to each other. And that's not what I want to represent in my life, in my personal life, but also within the organization. And that's the key point. I can have a call with a potential client or with a family or doing an intervention. I need to be present. I need to be conscious. I need to be calm. It's not just I need to, I want to be that person who can actively be there. And that's the biggest gift I can give to others.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. As a clinician and a provider myself, one of the things that I'm a huge advocate for and of is being able to provide services to providers. So to hear that you're supporting providers by reinforcing that concept of maintaining balance for yourself and for your team, with your team, that's absolutely wonderful. And I think sometimes people also get confused between the difference of being stressed versus being burnt out. For our audience, how do you differentiate being stressed versus being burnt out? And what would you do for either one of those categories?
Yeah, so being burned out is you cannot function anymore. You cannot do anything. You have to recover from it. Being stressed, everyone can become stressed in our daily lives. My opinion on that is this has all to do with our routine, with our recreational routine, our routine of the day, how many meetings or sessions, people we speak to. We only have certain capacity to give. That's important. What we also do at the Balance is we want to help each other grow. So we do a lot of supervisions within the team members. So it's not just the yoga teacher when they work with a patient with certain personality issues and they are triggered, just as an example. So when they are triggered, how to deal with the situation, what is coming up with it. So we do some internal therapeutic work as well, supervision within the team. We give trainings on different topics to know how to handle, how we can be better humans, but also better therapists, giving this further to others. At the end, it's not just about throwing sessions at the client, but really to be, beside being authentic, to be the best version of the therapy session we can give.
Absolutely. So, given your extensive training in various health disciplines, how do you integrate those various approaches to creating a cohesive treatment plan?
So, first of all, we recognize a human being is much more complex than we think today, or to put them in categorization. This is depression, or this is a bipolar, or from a clinical perspective, this is good to understand where they are. But we understand today, also it's from science, that we are much more complex human beings. We know the gut bacteria affects the brain, but also individual neural pathways have effect on how we are, how we feel today, our history, our past, our genetics. So it's a multiverse of issues which are affecting us today. And this cannot be just one therapist or one doctor addressing that. So from the beginning, this was my, let's say, main understanding of how individualized healthcare should be designed. It should be a multidisciplinary team which talks to each other. And this is how we are set up. When a client enters our facility, there is a psychiatric assessment, a medical assessment, a physiological assessment, a nutritional assessment, and a psychological assessment to understand in what state they are. And only then we can start to plan a proper schedule. Depends on the age, depends on the situation, depends what they had before, what worked, what did not work. And it's a constant learning by doing. To give you an example, so it's also not about giving, let's say, an aspirin medication to a patient, which works for everyone the same. It's more, how can we tailor it at its best? So the way we work, for example, is we have an app, the whole team is connected to that app. We have a manager in the house who's connected with the rest of the team. Whatever happens in the house, it's being reported to the rest of the team. Clinicians or other therapists react, recommend, influence what the next session, what is now to be done in the house. So this makes it much more effective and efficient. So the next person coming into the house for a treatment session, they know exactly in what state this patient is and what to address in that moment, with given all inputs from the rest of the team. And this way, if we adjust it on a daily basis, and then on a weekly basis, we intensify what works well, we change what doesn't work, and we motivate to try something new, just to find the best possible approach. And that's individualization. I hear very, very much, yeah, we have an individual approach, but then it's about having a one-on-one session but this is for me not individualization.
Everything that you're talking about, I am so passionate about true integration. And certainly, as I walked into my career, integration, the concept of integration was not understood. And what you're describing is exactly what is necessary and what I've been advocating for in pretty much every role I've taken as a clinician, which
Mhm.
is absolutely marvelous to hear. So thank you for reinforcing that, and it's so good to know that there's a model, that's out there that is definitely working. It's doing it right. You're seeing benefits coming out of this. Yes.
Yes, we're very happy and very fortunate to work with this client base. You need to afford it. At the end, everything has its cost and it's not for the mass. So we can do and we can offer what is possible out there, the best possible treatment option out there. But unfortunately, not everyone can afford that. We have been very successful with this approach in the last years, and we have been growing quite fast, giving also word of mouth. We haven't been present much internationally, but that's what more and more is happening right now.
Well, I'm curious, this demographic of people that you serve, typically high achievers, very driven, and often, I mean, I think it's almost like an addiction, right? The quest for more. And I'm wondering, I'm sure that they feel much better after coming to the balance and hopefully learn some tips and tricks for maintaining a more balanced life. But what's your rate of recidivism, or do you have an aftercare program? How do you keep people from going back to that grind, is my question.
It's very important, and that's a good point because what we always say is a residential program is a kind of a reset, which puts you into a certain track and direction, but this needs to be implemented, and we certainly help them. We connect with them on different levels. We have therapists on call. We check on them regularly in the early weeks and days when they go back home, and this can be for months or years sometimes with some of the clients or patients. But we can also send a therapist or a personal manager with them back home, depends on how they feel. And what we also feel is very important is to create the support group afterwards. So we work a lot with families and family dynamics. and try to bring them into the program as good as possible to work on the environment and not just the person itself, because he or she may have changed, but going back home, you still face what is out there. Unfortunately, they feel too quickly, oh, I'm well now, I'm good, and they don't take the aftercare plan that serious, but eventually they will come back for a refresh, and we take it from there again. So, but it's part of the process.
It definitely is not linear. I know recovery from any kind of addiction or proclivity, but all we can do is get a little better every
Yeah,
time, right?
1% at a time.
Yeah. One thing I would love to dive into is neuro-linguistic programming. Can you tell us more about that? How does that integrate into your programming? It's not something that you hear often. So, again, for our audience, can you dive into this a little bit more?
So NLP is one technique, but we have a variety of possible techniques which we adapt based on the client we have. Explaining there is a universe of possibilities, yeah, from a talking psychotherapeutic perspective to more body work, body-centered work, somatic work perspective, to more neurological work, which can be medication-based or biochemical or technology-based neurofeedback or direct current simulation, all these more newer type of techniques. I'm often asked, yeah, do you do this type or do you do this type? It's not that we do one specific thing. Our therapists are trained to implement or integrate multiple therapy approaches into a session, and this can change with a client over the course of weeks while they are with us. Because the first week, let's say, is more about stabilization, about grounding, about the nervous system. We work a lot with the nervous system, with the body. It's not about just working on the intellectual level, on the mental side, or on the talking therapy side. It's for them to experience, to feel, to ground. So that's why we combine also less clinical approaches, but also art therapy, music therapy, equine therapy, but also with some clients. We had recently someone, she wanted to do like a Spanish dance. It's helpful, it's to release, to let go and do something which makes fun. So our approach is not about sitting and talking and getting treatment all day. It should also bring in joy back to their lives. And that's the ultimate thing at the end, whether it's going to the beaches or going hikes or exploring something new on the island or learn something new. One client, we did some photography sessions. So try to do something new and find a passion to something new. So it's not just one technique. We tailor it and see how can we get this motivation out of this particular patient to see a different perspective of life in general, which then helps the real problem, the underlying issue.
That's great. Thank you for that. And I know nutrition, and you said that mind body connection really is something that's important for you as well. What
Mm.
role do you see that playing, particularly in recovering from addiction, stress, burnout, all of the things that you're treating at the balance?
It's very important. You are what you eat. If you eat during 2 years like a Big Mac, you're almost 100% consist of Big Mac after 2 years. So if you realize that, then you would choose wisely what you want to be in 2 years, right? Food is medicine, and food for us is a key component because many of clients we get come with also an eating disorder, sometimes very severe, which is one also of the most complex cases to be treated because it combines more personality, mental health, physical and trauma dynamics, families, and so on. It's also challenging for teams. They need to be more stable. And food, not just for the eating disorders, for everyone is helpful. We do an approach of personalized meal plans by a personal chef because this can change. The needs on a daily, weekly basis can change as well. The personal chefs They create with the nutritionist and the doctors plan, which is then implemented on a daily basis. How many meals, what of what. But we don't count, let's say, calories, or we want to make it enjoyable and intuitive for the patient to use food in general. We do cooking lessons. They help cooking as well and develop their meal plans. But food is key and very important.
That's great. Yeah. So I think going back to even what Amanda asked is it's wonderful when you have that reset. What are you doing, or what can patients go home with to maintain that, what they learn, and integrate that into their lives?
Yeah, it depends on what they came with. So
Mhm.
they will have a different take with them. But in general, what they will take with them is a proper assessment from different angles to their situation, understand where they stand, basically. I had once like a billionaire, a US billionaire, who flew over with his private jet to us, and he told me, look, I was at Mayo Clinic and I was there, and they all gave me super individual assessments, but no one told me what you need to do
Mm.
integrated. This was for me like a very clear direction why we exist with our approach. Clients get to understand themselves, to understand where, in what state they are, what are they in need, and what they need to do without being specific here. The routine, the healthy food, or what type of treatment they need. It's just to know what's next, ideally, to be happening.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge, right? Is getting to the place where you've gone through everything and now you're home, you're on your own, and now I've got this responsibility of trying to maintain what I loved, what worked for me, but even that transitioning to that new
Mm,
it's hard. How did you do it? How did you
mm.
commit to and have a discipline, find the discipline to be able to maintain it?
It's not a linear approach, as we already realized. This year, I started the year very super healthy, my routine, but then something happened. I traveled for a longer period. I couldn't implement it fully anymore. Then I came back, and then you start to struggle, and then you need help to ground again and to become come back into the wave of balance. I think to have someone, a therapist, to grab to remind you, to connect with, is very important here.
Yeah, accountability buddy, right? Are there new emerging trends or therapies or technologies that you're looking forward to or that are exciting you in your practice and what you're integrating into the balance?
Yes, we are a big fan of doing the core things right. So there are so many like tools and trackers and ways people use today, rings to track their sleep and track their calories. We have a different approach here. We want them to be more self-aware and listen to their body, listen to themselves, and not to be distracted or be cognitive. Yes, I'm good or I'm not good by a technology. Certainly, there are new techniques. If we talk experimental therapies with certain medication or technologies on neuromodulation techniques, we always at the forefront understanding what's happening there, what can we implement. And this is changing a lot because it's not just as an example, neurofeedback 5 or 10 years ago. It was meant, yeah, you need to do 10 sessions with this type of configuration for this type of disorder or goal. This has been changing quite a lot today. It's much more nuanced in how many sessions you need to do for what type of use. So this is becoming more sophisticated, nuanced, as I said, to understand. There is nothing today revolutionary out there, but it's more nuanced where we need to be on top of it. But we are not into the wellness side of trackers and technology.
I love that what you said. It's true. Again, the temptation is with all this tech. I mean, I do it. I'm on the treadmill, and my partner will say, "Babe, how'd you sleep?" And I'll say, "Let me tell you." And I check real quick, and he said, "No, how do you feel like you've slept?" So we have to really go backwards and simply check in mind, body, intuition, all those things that you don't need a tracker for.
No.
So I love hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't wear a watch. That's why I tried once an Apple Watch, but it was so distracting, was vibrating all the time. And if I'm in a meeting or if I'm in a conversation with someone, of course you can turn it off. You can just have the watch. But for me, it was distracting me from being consciously mindful when I needed to be.
Yeah. What advice would you give to someone who's currently feeling overwhelmed, but they're not willing to step back from their career, or maybe they can't step back from their career to be able to reset?
Take baby steps, take one step at a time, speak to someone, give us a call. We can direct you into the right direction. I have a team and we get X amount of inquiries every day. They cannot afford our program one, but we direct them into the right direction. Like you do more on an online platform basis. We do it individually. So take baby steps and also implementing breaks into your schedule. Do sport, just the basics. Speak to someone, stick to a healthy routine, and plan for it in advance. You plan for a meeting, plan for your healthy lifestyle, put it into your schedule, and
What
make yourself accountable by someone else if you can do that.
Right.
Have an appointment with a PT or have an appointment with a buddy. That's helpful.
Wonderful advice. What would you recommend to workplaces and other leaders and CEOs to continue to enhance the workplace environment as you have, and to encourage balance, and not just overall balance, but work life balance, work life integration?
I don't believe in forcing a healthy environment. It comes by being authentic and it starts at the top. So if you care about your people, care, ask, be interested in them. They will take this and pass this further. We also do a lot of activities, events, social mingling together, just to connect and chat outside work a lot with with the therapeutic team. But we go also on a hike or do on a Friday morning yoga together. Everyone is invited, even online, so people join and wherever they are in the world. So that's something, just to be authentic, be there for your team. And if you care, they will care not just for you, but about it for each other and for the clients at the end.
Yeah, beautiful. So we always land on our favorite question at the end of our podcast. But before I do, Amanda, did you have any other questions that you wanted to ask?
No, I was just thinking it's time to bring back Friday morning yoga here at Recovery.
Yeah, absolutely.
I used to teach a class. Great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
Good luck and enjoy.
yeah. Abdullah, was there anything else that you wanted to share or impart for us and our audience before we land on that last question?
I think anyone in need or a family member who knows someone in need, reach out for a conversation to us, to anyone. Just don't hesitate and see what's out there. There are different options. I have also written a book about living a life in balance, so this can be accessed on Amazon. Anyone can get it. Visit frequently our social media and website because we're working on some tools and resources for the broader audience out there to help them and help more people than we can do at the moment.
That's great. And actually, on that point, how can people reach you or the balance to be able to connect?
On our website,
Mhm.
thebalance.clinic, and you can reach out to myself or my team, and we are happy to speak.
Wonderful, wonderful. So the last question that we ask is, what does recovery mean to you?
Recovery means you have to be constantly aware and work on yourself, work on your environment, and not to take it for granted.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your advice, your wisdom, for sharing your story with us today. It really has been a pleasure to connect with you. And I'm so excited to be able to connect also to other members of the team at the Balance. We're very, very excited to maintain our connections. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You're welcome. And thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Recovery.com podcast. For additional information, resources, and to access treatment options, please visit our website at Recovery.com. We appreciate your listenership and are excited to have you join us on our next show coming soon.